Good morning, Tony Dattino, Chairman and founder of the USA Memory Championship, and certainly glad to be okay after Hurricane Milton came up through the area of Windermere, Florida, which is my residence. And all is well with the exception of a few shingles that we need to have replaced on our roof and a few strips and one around our venting system. So we got some work to do on the roof, but the good news is the house is here. It was brick. It was built in 2012. So it's fairly stable in terms of meeting stronger hurricane requirements. And then when you see the pictures of these residences along the Gulf Coast and some on the East Coast, it's like, God, we were blessed and we were fortunate. So I got a chance to do some reading over the weekend, and I was reading an interesting article in the current issue I have of Science Focus magazine. It's one of my favorite magazines. It comes by the BBC. And I'm reading an article in here, Why Bad News Beats Good News. And that was an interesting reflection on, you might long for some good news, but your brain relishes the headlines that say everything is going to hell. And I've often wondered why, when I do an exercise called GIG, good in good grows, garbage in garbage grows, or greatness in greatness will grow. It helps explain why actually the good in good growing and the greatness in greatness grows actually has an impact on the way we process information, and where garbage in, if it doesn't have a strong emotional bang to it, actually dissipates. And I found that this article was very helpful in explaining what our memory rhythms would be and how we're likely to act on the garbage or a problem or bad news, as we call it here in this article, and why we'll immediately act on bad news, but then if it doesn't have a super nuclear charge to the bad news or some long-term impact on you, it dissipates, and good news that comes stays longer. So it was an interesting explanation, though at first it sounds like, well, wait a minute, you're telling me that bad news it gets into your brain and gets there first, but good news, well, wait a minute, it gets there, but it stays longer. And I think the author here did a really nice job of explaining that. So let's see if we can go figure out. There is a thing that's been tried and it doesn't work because it's more good news around. People don't want to be miserable, right? Well, you would think that, and you'd say, well, gee, if there's good news, they've tried putting on TV shows where there's good news, good news, good news, and people don't pay attention to it, which is interesting because they want to experience the good news themselves. So they want to have some good news that has a direct impact on their life, and then they embellish that. They enjoy it, that holds on, it makes them feel better. It gives them what I call a more positive gig, which then allows it, the gig, the good in, the good grows. And if some really big time things, your children graduate from school, somebody's getting married, a new promotion in your job, those things kind of resonate a little bit stronger, and the good news becomes great news, and it just keeps building. But the obvious factor at work in the human's brain is a negativity bias. You say, well, gee, what does that mean? Well, when we see problems or we see things that, when it comes to what we pay attention to, we prioritize negative things. And events that are negative take priority over positive ones in the short term. If 100 people compliment you on something you did and one person criticizes you, what do you pay more attention to? This is always amazing. I say to people all the time, gee, you just had 10 wonderful things that people said about what a great presentation that was, or what a great job that you've done in some work project that you did. And one person comes along and gives you a little snicker and gives you a complaint about it. What do you focus on? It's like, the one person. And I'm like, wait a minute. You had 10 people give you something that was wonderful, and one person comes along and blows it up. Does that seem fair? Yeah. And we can all relate to that. Once negative information enters our brain, it's treated as being more significant. It carries more weight than positive or neutral information. You say, well, why do that? Why? It may be due to the way that emotionally negative experiences, so now a negative experience or negative information comes to you, it has a cognitive focus that's more narrow, meaning a positive comment is like, wow, and you kind of can get lost in the big picture of wonderfulness. But negative news comes in and says, I may have to act on this more immediately. This has got a narrow focus, and therefore it takes a priority. I need to act on this. There's something I need to learn or do, or simply put, our brains try to figure out, what do I have to do with this? So the focus in your brain in the short term is much more action-oriented, much more I need to pay attention to this, much more I need to do something with this if it's personally impacting you. But the experience creates this narrow focus, which then says, I got to do something with it. Now, the good news, conversely, a negative emotion, it zooms in on a cause, directing attention to what our actions or resources are, and it ignores most of what's happening around us. So again, people can be telling you some good things, but one negative, and says, God, I got to focus on this. Uh-oh, I've got a spot on my dress, or uh-oh, I spilled something on my shirt, or you know what, it looks like you got something on your cheek. And so our brain says, oh, I got to take the spot, or I got something on my shirt. Oh, so the brain says, I got to do something about that right quick. And people around you say, wow, that's a great looking outfit, or man, your vocabulary is just superb in that presentation you just gave. But what do we focus on? The one thing that we need to immediately address. If we think of our brain as a theater, a positive emotion brings the house lights up. So if we're in the theater and the house lights come up, what do? Everything's in view, and it's time for a break. So if you've been to the movies, the theater, and the lights are up, off we go. Maybe it's popcorn, maybe it's a bathroom break, maybe it's go get some snacks or candy bars. If you're in a theater, maybe you go get a bite to eat, but it's time to get up and just explore the whole theater. But when the lights come down, what are you now doing? Oh, okay, it's now the lights are down and we focus on the stage. So we put this narrow focus on what's going on right in front of us. So what's either on the movie screen, what's on the theater stage, and so we have this narrow focus that commands our attention immediately. And that's the way our brains work with negative and positive information. The negative information is like bringing the house lights down. The positive information is like opening up the whole theater and allowing us to go about it and look at the whole picture. So we lose a bit of focus. We may be distracted by someone talking over here. We may be walking up an aisle to go to the bathroom or a snack stand or meet somebody that's coming in to get them to their proper seats. But when the house lights come down, it's now focused. Shh, everybody pay attention to what's going on the stage. Now here's the interesting part. What stays longer? So the negative information comes in and it's kind of has an immediate focus and let me think of what I need to do. And if it passes to the point where, okay, I've taken care of it or it's passed in some degree, that kind of filters its way out and it seems to dissipate more quicker unless it's got some personal heavy charge or impact. On the positive side, those stay in our brain and it kind of makes us feel good and we kind of generate the good in, good grows. We kind of build on that. Sometimes we may embellish those stories, but they tend to last longer in our long-term memory, which brings me back to memory rhythms. So when input comes into our brain, we start to look at it and give it significance or immediate attention. And now if it's a quick, immediate negative impact, short-term memory cycle says in, out, taken care of, done. Sometimes we file those experiences away for future benefits so we can handle those things better. But for the most part, we then move on to some good things have happened. I'm happy to share that. I want to tell it to 10 more people. And let me figure out how I can make myself feel good with this. And therefore, it tends to last a little longer. As I close out on this particular article, I thought this was really well done, and it really does kind of create a little bit of a ping pong match in your head. Memories are positive. The feelings tend to hang around. It means our older memories skew towards the positive. And because our memories are what our brains use to understand the world, this affects our thinking and perception on a variety of levels. Now again, that all falls apart though if you're talking about something that was significant. Like in our case, we had a major hurricane in 2012. Tree falls on the house. During this hurricane in 2024, what do you think I'm looking at? I'm looking around the neighborhood, or I'm looking around our residence. Where are some trees likely to fall down on the house? So I made sure we were inside the house in a bedroom that didn't have the likelihood for a tree falling on the house. That's traumatic. That's more positive, sticks a little bit longer, even though it's a negative memory. Learning experiences. On the other side, we had some neighbors come by, kids that worked for the parents, helped swept up the leaves, clean up the debris. And I've been bragging about these kids and these neighbors to anybody that has called me from the Northeast to see how we made out. And I keep raving about these kids because it was such a positive experience that a neighbor we had is just so awesome and just so helpful, and even bringing his kids into learning how to handle things during a time like a storm. So there's my Monday morning live with Tony. Hope you can grab some insights from it, and it can make a difference in your life. So we shall see you back here on Wednesday.